Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here, as always, with Kasey, Vlad to the Bone, Shienvold, and Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk to you today about outfielders and who to take, who not to take, and who some sleepers are. So I'm excited, Dr. Dan, Kasey, Vlad to the Bone. I'm excited for you also. So let's get started.
Ross, I love your energy. I love how you always say you're going to do it today. You're so
Today!
excited. Love it. Okay, so we're diving in about outfielders. We've been prepping everybody for the drafts coming up. Most people are having their drafts starting probably next week more. So it's good that we get a lot of that information in. I want to give you guys information out there about our schedule for next week, though, because it is switching. Next week, Ross and Kasey have a show on Tuesdays that I usually can't be at, but we're switching that time. We're switching it to 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. This is just for this week, I do believe. And from what I hear, they make a lot of fun of me on that show. So I'm going to hear about whatever they said. I can't wait to hear it. We are going to do starting pitchers on Tuesday of next week. On Thursday, we're not going to have our show at the normal time, but we are going to be, our live draft is going to be shown right on here on YouTube. You can come and see who we're drafting live. That's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Ross, do I have that time right?
You have it correct, sir.
All right, you're the commissioner of that league, so I just want to make sure.
I changed it. It's 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll probably start, let's say we'll probably be on the air at 4:58, just so, because the draft starts at 5. So we'll do 4:58. We'll be on a little early, Kasey. And then next Friday is St. Patrick's Day, which I'm excited about because I get to wear more green.
Always wearing the A's shirts.
I wanted to point out, Dan, I don't know if you noticed this, but the commissioner of that league changed the settings to a 2-catcher league.
I did notice that, and the commissioner is Ross. So, and I don't know if this came out of our conversation last time I guess when we were talking about catchers, we were talking about valuation. I think Ross wants to see what we do when there's 2 catchers.
This league is more of like an experimental league. It's like I want to like use you guys as guinea pigs because it's an FSN league. So yes, I'm doing 2 catchers, and we can talk about that.
The independent league of fantasy baseball, where they try new stuff out first to see if it's going to work before moving it to the.
And I did want to take away wins out of pitchers, but Kasey, I left it in, and I have quality starts is in there too. I left both.
As long as quality starts are in there, I think that's good.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you pick one or the other, or if you want to do both, that's fine. I mean, in this league, we have 25 stat categories. So
I know that's why I kind of left it in there.
All right, let's dive in about outfielders because that's what people came to find out about today. We're going to talk about the top 10, but I want to just talk about I like to start off with the tiers. Tier 1. How many are in Tier 1? Case, let's start with you.
I have 8 in Tier 1.
Okay, I have 7. Ross? Oh my God,
I
did
have
you go to sleep?
6. Okay. I have 6.
6. All right.
Well, I'm more generous than you guys.
Ross has the least. So Ross, give us your top 6. I want to hear your actual first tier, and then Kasey and I will talk about who we had added in.
Okay, so I'm not taking Aaron Judge because he's on my fantasy team that I'm keeping.
Too much of a jinx.
But I am going to say he's number 1 just because of the year he had last year, 60-something home runs. He batted close to 300. I mean, the guy had he stole bases. He had a fantastic year last year. So just because of his year last year, I don't think he'll duplicate that. I hope I'm wrong, Kasey Shienvold. I hope I'm wrong.
So am I.
I hope I hope he hits 70 home runs, but I don't think he will. So I have Judge 1. I'm not going to say who I'm thinking to say because that's a line from Jerry Maguire, actually. My number 2 is Yordan Alvarez. Is how you say it?
Wow.
I just feel he had such a great postseason, and the Houston Astros lineup is so potent. And this guy is the real deal. I have him number 2. I love this guy. Number 3 is Julio Rodriguez of Seattle, just up and coming stud. Number 4, Kasey, I know you love him. Ronald Acuna Jr., right? Is it Jr.?
Yeah.
I just don't love him. I mean, he had 15 home runs last year. I know he had over 20 stolen bases. He did not hit. His batting average wasn't that great. He struck out 120 times in like 450 at bats. That's not too good, Kasey Shienvold. So I don't know what the hype on this guy is. I get what he's done in the past. I know he's good, but I don't know why people have him in tier 1. I left him in there just because of all the press and everybody's taking him number 1. A lot of leagues are taking him number 1, but I don't agree with that. And prove me wrong. I love to hear why, Kasey Shienvold, because you love him so much. And then 2 is Mookie Betts, just because I live in LA and this guy does everything and he's a stud. He really is a stud.
You mean 5?
Mookie Betts is 5. And then 6, I'm not taking Trout. I'm not taking Soto. I'll take Kyle Tucker just because of that lineup in Houston. And that guy hits 100 RBIs and he'll have 30 home runs and he'll have a great season. I'm worried about Soto just because his health's not 100% and that ballpark's horrible to hit in. And Trout's just getting old, he's just getting hurt every year. So, but those guys are on the verge of hitting that tier 1. But that's my tier 1. Prove me wrong, you two. Go ahead.
Really interesting. All right, Case, let's comment on his top 6. Let's just talk about the rankings first.
Okay.
Like, what were you surprised about when you heard him talk? I saw your face.
I was surprised he had Julio Rodriguez ranked above Ronald Acuna Jr.
Tell me why you love Ronald so much. Not the clown from McDonald's, but the guy who plays for the Braves.
2 years ago, he blew out his knee in the middle of the season, and that was a season. If you look at the pace he was on, it was going to be epic. Last year, he comes back from a torn ACL, and sure, did he have the power he had beforehand? No. Did he have the speed? Of course not. He's coming back from an ACL, but this is a guy who's only like 23 years old and has already done it. And he's now a year removed from the ACL and has had a full off season of training, a full off season of preparing. He's healthy. As you heard me say on Tuesday, I think he's going to be the 5th 40-40 guy in MLB history this year. I just think he's poised for that big of a year. He's in a great ballpark, a really good lineup. I think the sky's the limit for him. I have Yordan Alvarez. I have Judge 2. So again, I don't argue with Judge at 1. I think if he regresses even a little bit to like 45 home runs, which is still an amazing year, and 15 or 16 steals, that's not as good as somebody who could go 30-30 pretty easily because of the value of steals. I have Yordan Alvarez 3, so I don't mind him being ranked up that high. I think that guy he's a professional hitter. You can't throw the ball past him. Like, you watched him in the playoffs last year and it was just amazing to watch. I have Julio Rodriguez 4. Again, we have the same top 6, except I put Trout and I put Trout and Soto in that top tier. Those are the only.
Now, the only reason, let me go to Trout real quick. Trout was a great base stealer back in the day when he was in his 20s. He's not in his 20s anymore, Kasey Shienvold. He's in his 30s, and he's been dinged up a lot. And I'm just, I just think we all think of Trout as this young stud. He's not that young stud anymore. He's a family guy. He's older. He's not that base stealer. I just think, that's the reason I'm bringing him down a little bit, just because of he's not the base.
You're saying he's old and he didn't steal bases last
year.
I'm
saying he's getting older.
But last year, he only played in 119 games, right? Because he gets hurt. Still hit 40 bombs. Still batted 283.
His power will always be there. Yes.
Right. And but if the only difference is 10 steals with Aaron Judge, does that drop you all the way from being number 1 to being second tier?
Let me make a couple arguments here. So, Case, you were talking about if Judge's homers drop off. Still, you have to remember he scored 133 runs and had 131 RBIs.
Oh, yeah. Look, I have him number 2.
Yeah, no, I do. I have him 1. I have him 1 because even with that drop off, I still think especially if he just is going to keep running.
Yeah.
He's
in his 30s now too.
He is.
All the arguments that you're using against Trout, he's the same age.
Well, I didn't use those against Trout.
No, I know.
However, I will say the fact that Trout, the real problem isn't just that Trout's aging, because guess what? That describes every human being on earth. What is the problem is that Trout's not running. He doesn't run at all. And hopefully he's going to get back to that. I have him on our keeper league team. So I want him to do some running. But what I'm surprised about is that you guys have Yordan Alvarez as high as he is, because he also doesn't run.
No,
it's like built in that he's not going to run.
It's just that potent lineup in Houston. Compared to the Angel lineup with Trout, it's like night and day.
Okay, but if you compare Trout to Yordan Alvarez last year, Trout had about 40 less at bats, maybe 30 less at bats. His numbers were almost identical, lower batting average, but they would have come
But
up to
still
that. He had
283.
Yeah, his
Yeah,
average
but
was
remember,
low.
Jordan Alvarez is in the peak of his career. Trout's in the downfall of his career.
I agree. But
Yeah,
but
but
here's
we're
the
not
other
doing
thing. Jordan
keeper
Alvarez is
rankings.
also hurt.
Yeah, he has bad knees all the time, isn't it?
Well, and he's currently hurt. So I can't rank him that high. I have Jordan Alvarez number 9. He's a
there you
great
go.
player, but outfield is pretty loaded at the top. I have Aaron Judge 1. I do have Ronald Acuna 2nd. That's going to make Ross go crazy. But
It's not crazy. I just think he's getting so much hype with. We'll see what happens.
It's that 40-40.
I mean, if he does it, I'll bravo Kasey Shienvold. He does the 40-40.
I mean,
I just don't.
He could do it. Julio Rodriguez could do it. Kyle Tucker could do it. I like a player like that more. I have those guys higher. So I have Ronald Acuna 2nd. I have Mookie Betts 3rd. He had a monster season.
No disagreement.
I have Kyle Tucker 4th. Tucker, I mean, he had 30 homers, 25 RBIs. He's in that great lineup too. 257 average, and he's still learning. So the sky's the limit for him. Julio Rodriguez next. Then I do think there's a bit of a drop-off, but I still count this as tier 1 because Juan Soto can put up those numbers. Mike Trout is the big asterisk because he's got the talent, but is he going to stay healthy? And I am betting not. I'm not comfortable taking him out of the first tier, but I'm betting not. So that's
he's
my
number
top
8
7.
for me. He's that's why I have him as 8th out of the 8 in the first tier.
It makes sense to me. Okay, so let's see if you can guess who I have at number 8. This is a power speed guy, young guy.
Michael Harris.
Michael Harris.
Really?
Michael Harris 2.
I have him at 9.
Ross,
I have him at 9.
I have him in the top 10. I have, and then Casey Noyes. I think this guy's
Cedric Mullins.
Cedric Mullins, who's I think is going to lead the league in stolen bases with like 45, 50 stolen bases and hit 25, 30 home runs. I like Cedric Mullins above Michael Harris, but that's me. And that Baltimore ballparks, they moved it in a little bit also this year. But I love Cedric Mullins this year. I think he's going to be a monster year. Monster.
Well, I mean, look, I don't have Cedric Mullins far off. I have him 12th. So, we're
10th.
quibbling here. But I do think that, you bring up good points. If you can steal that many bases, stolen bases drive so much of rankings right now to me because they're so rare. And that's why a guy like Michael Harris, I actually have above Jordan Alvarez. He's injured. Jordan Alvarez is injured and doesn't steal bases. I'd rather take a chance on Michael Harris. I'm not saying take a chance on him like you're not going to get something good. You're going to get something great with him. It depends on how great. And he could jump into tier 1 or he could easily fall into tier 3, but he's going to give you great value. My number 10 is Luis Robert.
It's Luis Robert. It's Luis Robert. I mean, I've looked that up and I listened to some broadcasts.
How do you look up how something's
Well, I went on YouTube and listened to some
I want to just interject something to get back to Ronald Acuna because I know Ross has said like he's not that impressed with him. His 2021 season, he played 82 games. He got hurt after the All-Star break, if you remember, or right around it. In 82 games, so half a season, literally 300 at bats, 360 plate appearances, 24 home runs, 17 steals, 72 runs scored and a 283 average.
In half a season.
You know what I'm going to say? What have you done for me lately, Casey Shienvold? Last season, 450 at bats, 15 home runs, 50 RBIs. Casey Shienvold. It's not that good. It's not that good. I can name 35 players that had better stats than that right now.
Wow. All right. Well, but you still have him ranked 4th. Is that right?
I do, just because of the hype. I do have him. He's top tier, yes. If you take him number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, you're not going to go wrong with the. I mean, he's going to have a good season. I mean, I'm just saying my rating. If I get the chance to take Aaron Judge first, I'll do it.
To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, Aaron Judge is
he your first overall pick of batters in the draft?
Aaron Judge? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
This year, yes. I would take him over Trey Turner. I know Trey Turner is getting some heat too, and people are talking about him. But I just think Judge's season last year was was so much better than anybody else's.
One of the reasons that you got to take Judge first, if you don't take him first, and he does what he did last year again, you did miss out on the number 1 player. I mean, like he was the number 1 player last year, and it was not even close. He just blew the doors off things. Let's move to the next 10. Okay. Wait, Ross, did you finish the back end of your top 10?
You mentioned a lot of them. I have Cedric Mullins in the top 10. I I have Adolis or Garcia in the top 10 of Texas. I feel he'll have stolen bases and home runs this year. Somebody who's on my top 10 that just maybe is Byron Buxton if he stays healthy.
I was going to say your top 10 is getting very
large. He was tied for number 10, Byron Buxton. Okay?
I put him at 19 because I've owned him for years, and he just.
I know, I get it. It's just his health issue.
Casey,
but
guess
if he's
where I
healthy,
ranked him?
Casey,
where
he's healthy, he's another guy that can be a 30-30.
Oh,
guy.
if he's healthy, he's amazing.
If he's healthy, he certainly jumps into the top 10.
But yes,
I have him at 19 because of the risk.
That's mostly my tier 2 and most of my top 10. Yes.
So my number 11 guy, my first one in the next 10. I love this guy. He does everything. You can just pencil him in for exactly what he's going to do. It's Randy Arozarena.
I have
Andy Arozarena.
Hey, Arozarena.
It's like we ranked together, Daniel.
And we didn't.
We did. You guys met in midway between Pennsylvania and Ohio, and you guys went over this without me. I know you did.
No, this is one of those situations where we can say great minds think alike until we're about a month into the season, and then we realize great minds think alike, but maybe it wasn't so great.
Now, Randy Arozarena, we all know Tampa Bay is going to have they'll have some huge players with some big years, and they have a lot of new faces on that team. They have, I think 3 or 4 new starters in the outfield and infield. So Randy can steal. He gets hits for power, and if he stays healthy, I agree with you.
So why do you like Cedric Mullins over Randy Arozarena?
Yes.
I mean, I have him back to back. I have Mullins after.
Mullins is like 7 or 8 in my ratings. I mean, I
have Mullins 10, Arozarena 11.
Okay.
I mean, I just feel Mullins is going to lead the league in stolen bases. Like I told Casey that earlier.
Why do you just feel it? I want to know. How do you know?
I don't know. I just feel I think he'll get on base. I think their lineup is really strong this year. I think Baltimore is a team to reckon with in the East. I know the Yankees are the favorites, but I think Baltimore will make the playoffs, and I think Toronto can make the playoffs too. And I just feel with that lineup and with Cedric at his peak age right now, I just feel he'll steal a lot of bases. I just feel it.
And, all right. And he's stolen 30 bases each of the past 2 seasons, so it's not a stretch for him to try to add some more steals. But if, I have him ranked 10th. I went back and forth between Arozarena because I trust Arozarena's power better than I trust Cedric Mullins. Because while he was 30-30 in 2021, he went back down to 16 home runs last year. So Arozarena is penciled for 25 plus for me almost as a guarantee.
Wait, we forgot to talk about Luis Robert. I'll call him Robert because you'd say
I have him 12.
I did talk about him.
So why do you like him so much? I mean, I know he was compared to Ricky Henderson when he came up from the minors, and people were saying, "Oh, this is the next Ricky Henderson." Why do you like him so much, and why do you have him so high?
So the reason I like him so much is because he's so young. He can still develop into things, and he's a power speed guy. I mean, I'm looking for power speed for the most part. I'm not as interested in guys who aren't going to run. I think Robert is going to run. If he stays healthy, he's going to be just like these guys, but maybe even better. So he has a bigger ceiling.
Okay.
To me, Robert is like a Arozarena with a much higher ceiling. I figure why not go for it?
Yeah, I mean, my concern with him obviously is his first 2 years in the league, he was hurt both years. And last year he was hurt. He only played in 98 games. He's never stolen more than 11 bases in a season.
Well, okay, that's true. But a lot of that is because he hasn't played that long,
Right.
Which is a problem in and of itself.
But again, I mean,
no, I have him 12th. So we're quibbling about so.
I know. I'm just asking why the hype on this guy's so high, and there's so many players below him that have good seasons, but that's fine.
I think, Ross, it's just when you hear a power speed guy, a young power speed guy, people just dream. They just think, oh my God, this guy could
lottery.
You're 100% right. You're 100%.
It could be 2015 Mike Trout.
I mean, this is the definition of a man crush, is like when people are like, this guy could be amazing. How often does could be end up being that? It's not very often, actually. So at the same time, I think he's got a pretty safe floor, but he's got more risk than these other guys.
Yep.
Right.
I would have
I have him under my busts. By the way.
And I especially for where you're going to have to draft him. I mean, he's ranked number 36 overall in Yahoo. That's absurd. He should not be ranked that highly.
No, that's almost hits the bust category just because he's getting picked so high. But keep going.
100%. Okay, so let's move into the rest. The next 10. Ross, bring us up to speed with some of the guys you have.
You know my feeling about rookies, and there's a rookie that plays in Arizona named Corbin Carroll.
Yep.
He's
He
getting a
was
lot
hard
of
to
heat.
rank.
People are already saying he's going to be rookie of the year. He steals bases. He has power. I've seen this guy play. He is good. I just get worried about rookies, but if you can draft him in the 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th round, it's worth it. If you take him in the 3rd or 4th round, I think it's a little too early to take a rookie that early. So I like him, but it just depends where in the draft he goes. But if it's one of these keeper leagues, or if he's one of these leagues where it's a dynasty league, yes, take him earlier, of course. But if it's a redraft league, again, I think he'll have a good year. I don't know if he'll have a great year. We'll see what happens. But it's kind of, people are kind of enchanted with like these rookies because they all feel, if they have a great year, they're the ones that drafted him. They look like a genius. What do you guys think about Corbin Carroll? And do you guys have any eyes on him during the draft?
Corbin Carroll, go ahead.
I'm
Kasey.
ranked 15th. So I'm kind of right in the ballpark that you're talking about, because you talked about Cedric Mullins leading the league in steals. He certainly could lead his league in steals as well. He's that fast. Arizona is notoriously a great hitter's ballpark. He's going to get 81 games there. You can hit what would be fly balls in some of the other parks and their home runs there. So I could very easily see him getting close to around 20 home runs and upwards of 35 or more steals if he gets on base and stays healthy, which he proved he could do last year in his kind of cameo.
So I have him ranked 16th, very, very similar ranking. But I mean, I agree with Ross on rookies in general, especially in redraft leagues. I mean, you're more than likely to have them not work out as well as you think. They have to adjust. The big dance is tough.
It's interesting, and I want to know what you guys have made of it. The biggest name in fantasy baseball, or maybe in baseball in general so far this spring, has been the rookie for St. Louis, Jordan Walker. And they're predicting him just taking over the outfield for them. And he's been, 9 for 21 already?
He's hitting like over 400 Kasey. He has power. He's 6'9".
Such a small sample size.
And it's
6'9". This guy's 6'9". He's
mile
taller
an
than
hour.
Ratner.
117 mile an hour exit velocity. They're already making this is how sensationalizing the media can be. I've heard like different people compare him to Albert Pujols already, and it's crazy. But I see this guy suddenly becoming a 3rd or 4th round pick because of the hype he's getting this spring. And so in that respect, it's like, could this guy be a 30-30 guy out of the gate? Sure. But are you willing to pay the capital it's going to cost to get him when he's
he's 20 years old. He's 20 years old.
In a redraft league, it's not worth it.
He was born in 2003. It's unbelievable.
He was born in 2003.
I was finishing my doctorate in 2003.
2003, he was born, and he's 20, and he's 6'9", and he's just a freak of nature.
2003 was 3 years after the In the Year 2000 skit became real. I mean,
I know.
Come on. So not to make us look old, but yes, I agree with you. He's the big hype guy for the spring. It's be interesting where he goes in the draft. He was originally a third baseman. Now they're moving him into the outfield because they have a guy that plays third base who's pretty good, named Nolan something. I forgot his name, but
Gormanato.
I'm teasing
Nolan Gormanato when you combine.
He's an all-star, according. Yeah. But yes, I think you're hit it right on the dot, Kasey. I think this kid is something special, and I'm curious to see where he goes in the draft.
I think he's shooting up draft boards, and in a redraft league, it's never going to be worth it at this point,
right? Based on 21 at bats,
and it's spring training. I mean, like, you cannot trust these numbers. I mean, I know everybody's getting excited about him, and if I had a keeper or dynasty spot and I had him, I'd be really excited, and every reason to be. But in a redraft league, I don't have him in the outfield. I probably wouldn't have him in the top 30. I can't even.
No, I don't have him in my top 30.
I also would play him at third base, by the way, because that's where he qualifies, and third base is weaker.
Oh, he does. Okay, good. I was going to ask you
in Yahoo anyway, which they have a lower standard of what qualifies than some other leagues, so it's worth.
What do you guys have? We talked about this guy during waiver wire last season, and this guy he had probably the hottest weeks of any player in the league. Like, he was 5 home runs in like 5 games. I mean, this guy was on fire. And he is hot and cold, and he strikes out a lot. Is Kyle Schwarber of Philadelphia. Where do you, and he was leading off a lot last year too, so he does get his at bats. Where do you guys have him? What's your fear of him? I know his batting average isn't the greatest, and he doesn't steal many bases. But what do you guys think about him this year?
I have him in my top 20. I just think, he's going to be at the top of that lineup. He's going to have, now he's not going to lead off, so he's going to have Trey Turner on base in front of him, which is a recipe for getting good pitches to hit and driving in runs, because that cat can score on a bunt. And so his batting average is going to be atrocious, probably 230, 235. If you're an on-base percentage league, though, that doesn't hurt you, because his on-base percentage is usually in the high threes, because he has such a discerning eye, and he walks. He could easily hit 40 bombs, drive in 100 runs. So I'm willing to take a chance on that, because I don't think a low batting average punishes you that much.
Casey, let me just correct you real quick. The league average last year in batting average, guess what it was?
242.
I was going to guess 241.
242.
Oh my God.
Shienvold wins again.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had such a good guess, and I still didn't get it better.
It was 242, and he had 230 something. So it's not like
it's not.
He's not going to really hurt you
batted
too much in batting average, but a little bit.
He batted 218 last year. Let's be
218.
clear
Okay.
about it.
Yeah. So it doesn't help you. No, but if you have, but again, if you build your team appropriately, you can absorb a guy who has a 220 batting average.
And I'm thinking, like, let's say he gets hot and he has a few hot weeks. I can trade him to Dr. Dan Ratner for one of his superstars and just rip the guy off. You know what I mean? Like, he'll get hot. Dan has no idea what he's doing, and I'll take one of his big names. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness. Now listen, with all the batting averages down so low, do you know who's got to be the happiest about this? It's a guy named Mario Mendoza.
I know.
The Mendoza line, it doesn't mean anything.
The Mendoza line is what, 200, right?
It's
the Mendoza line 200. Is that what it is?
Below average.
200.
Yeah, 200. So, yes, Mario Mendoza played for the Pittsburgh Pirates back in the 70s, and they named the Mendoza line because of him. You're 100% right. It's a good quiz question.
So Adam Dunn certainly wishes he was playing today.
I mean, but again, with the pitch clock and the you can't do the shift.
Change batting average too.
The no shift thing, that's going to help batting averages go up this year. We'll see a change in batting average.
Out a lot.
So let me answer your question about Schwarber though. I do not have him ranked in my top 20. I'm not saying he won't finish in the top 20. I totally understand that he could. I just think if you have that risk already built in, not only could he not have that great a season, he could get benched. I mean, if he's really not hitting that, so there's too much risk associated with.
Well, that's like any player. If he's not hitting, they bench. It's any player in the league that happens.
It's like any player who hit 218 last year. There's a difference. Any player can go into a big slump, but he's close to it already. Now he's got huge power, so he's going to be valuable, I think. But I don't see him. I don't even have him as like a bust, but I don't have him in my top 20. Let me list some other guys that I do have there. Starling Marte. Starling Marte, I know he's aging.
I have him 21.
You have him 21?
Yeah.
I have him 24
I have
just
him
because
13.
of the health. I'm worried about his health.
All right, I get it. I have him 13, though, because in a partial season, he went 16 homers and 18 stolen bases with great
I had him in fantasy. I had him last year. I get it. But he never can stay healthy, this guy.
He can't, but if you get 20-20 in 2/3 of a season, you're going to be pretty happy with that.
Sure.
Then I have George Springer.
Yep. I have him 14.
He's in a great lineup. And it's just the power speed thing can just be a guy who's 25-10 at this point. Like, you get 10 stolen bases. That really helps. You're playing against, even if you're matching it up against Mike Trout, Mike Trout's not going to steal bases. The valuation starts to shrink between those two. I have Teoscar Hernandez at 15.
New ball team, playing Seattle, new ballpark, new teammates. I like him. Hopefully he'll play every day.
I have him in the
I think he'll play most days.
22.
I hope you're right.
I mean, and people underestimate Seattle players. I think they just think of it as a pitcher's park, which it is. But
and they also say it's not Ichiro. I don't want him.
Right. Well, Julio Rodriguez is a top tier.
He's the only one. Yeah.
The two guys I found the hardest to rank were Corbin Carroll because of the rookie factor and the hype, and Adolis Garcia. It was like, how much do you trust this guy? Ross, I heard you say you trust him. Casey, what about you?
I have him 16th. I have
him
Carroll
17th.
15. I have Carroll 15 and Garcia 16.
I have 17th, but I have him listed as a bust.
I have
Wow.
Luis Robert, since that's what YouTube says, and George Springer listed as my bust. And the reason I put Springer there is because of the injury factor with him.
Yeah.
And they're playing, I just like that turf up there, that artificial grass is apparently not the most forgiving from what I've read. That,
by the way, I
complain about it.
have Luis Robert. Now we're going to call him. I have him as a bust also. I know I ranked him 10th, but at the same time, you just have to pay too much for him.
Right. And that was my Springer, because I love George Springer. I own him in our keeper league. I might keep him. We'll see. Because at the top of that lineup, when you have all those guys, Bichette and Guerrero and all of them batting behind you, Whit Merrifield might bat behind you, and Matt Chapman, you're going to get driven in if you get on base. I just worry about his back and his knees.
I mean, Robert and Adolis Garcia, I don't think they're going to be bad players. And actually, I think Garcia is even a safer player to be a solid,
he's healthy. Yeah.
A solid player. But I just think you have to pay too much for them both.
Now, Dan, do you have Dalton Varsho in your top 20?
I don't, because he qualifies at catcher. So I'm not going to take
I think 98% of people who have Dalton on their team won't start him at catcher. They won't start
I'll start him at catcher, but I still think he's a top 20 fantasy outfielder also.
Oh, you do?
I don't have him in the top 20.
I can't argue.
But I can't say he's far off from it.
Yeah, I stayed away just because he's a cat. I have him as catcher. He'll start as catcher if I draft him.
That's the thing. And
no,
somebody's going to draft him too highly because he is.
Now, my bust, just because he's being drafted very high, you guys have him in top tier. And I don't think he's going to have a great year just because of that ballpark and just because he didn't show much when he was traded to San Diego, is Juan Soto. And when he was traded to that ballpark, he did not hit like Juan Soto. He hit like a regular person.
Yep.
I mean, the stats were not there, Kasey Shienvold. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about Juan Soto.
I don't disagree with you that there's risk
your first
there.
round pick. If you're going to take him in the first round, this guy better produce.
And this is me making an excuse for him. Maybe, I don't know. I look at what happened with Francisco Lindor when he went to the Mets and how that first season was mediocre at best. And then once he adjusted to being in a new environment, in a new stadium, and got comfortable last year, he was an all-star again. So
yeah,
I hope you're right. I mean,
the upside's there, but I think Ross is right that what you're going to have to pay for Soto is too high for that risk.
Yeah, I think it's high, but I root for the guy. I mean, he's from the Dominican, very poor part of the Dominican Republic he's from. And all the kids that he grew up with and all the kids that were in that baseball academy, he gives back a lot to those kids. And I love those stories when ball players get back to from their roots. You know what I mean? I love that stuff. And he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a very good guy. Now, we've talked about the top 20. The only guy I also have in the top 20 that hasn't been mentioned yet is Brian Reynolds in Pittsburgh. For two reasons. One, you can be a good fantasy player in a bad reality lineup, a reality team. We've seen it before with different players, and Reynolds has done it consistently now for a couple of years. And two, he might get traded to a contender come July and suddenly
I think it's more than might. I think it's likely.
Be in this dynamic lineup where suddenly you've gotten him for value later, maybe in the middle rounds of the draft, and he becomes a run scorer and RBI producer because he's in a better lineup.
Well, I have him as a value pick, but I don't have him in my top 20. But I think you're making the same points.
I have him as value pick too, but I don't need. I mean, he'll be drafted in the probably in the 8th or 9th round. That's where I project him. What do you think, guys? What do you think about Eloy Jimenez?
Eloy Jimenez.
What do you guys think about him?
I have him.
I have him 19.
I have him ranked 20th.
I have him 16. No, 17. Sorry. Light tower power. He's going to DH this year, from what I've heard. So hopefully that'll keep him healthy. It's been like weird injuries. I mean, season-ending ones, but weird ones like a torn pectoral muscle on trying to catch a ball. Or if he stays healthy, he's got power. He doesn't run though, and if it's hard to put him too high on the list if the best you're hoping for is 3.5 categories or 4 categories.
I mean, do you guys remember when he was called up from the minors and all the hype on? I remember all the hype. It was crazy. And he never really developed into the hype they talked about, but maybe this is a season. The White Sox have a good hitting team. I love Andrew Vaughn, who qualifies at outfield. I think he'll have a big year, but he's also a first baseman. And we also Tim Anderson, the econ teacher. I mean, I think he'll have a good season. He'll probably lead the league in batting average. But the White Sox overall, just the problem they have is their pitching. So
yeah,
that's
I
their
think,
downfall.
Ross, we can probably safely say that this year, neither you or I are going to predict them to win the World Series.
No, I don't know if they'll
It
even
didn't
be
wear well.
500. Yeah.
no, it didn't go well for you. But I picked the
No.
Brewers to make the World Series, so I didn't do much better.
It
So
was a little better.
I wanted to mention before we get into sleepers and value picks, a couple players who are just outside of my top 20
Okay.
that I think are important. I know he's old. I know he gets hurt, but Giancarlo Stanton is one of those players where if he stays healthy, he could just as easily lead the Yankees in home runs as somebody else.
That's a bold prediction, Kasey Shienvold.
I did say that, didn't I?
Yes, you did, sir.
And Stephen Kwan. I mean, the guy he's an automatic hit. It's like he gets on base all the time. He's one of those guys who doesn't ever wow you, but he does a little bit of everything. I think he's going to run like crazy, score a lot of runs, and give you a good batting average. He's not a pop guy. I don't know, Dan, if you're a Clevelander. What are your thoughts on Kwan?
I think Kwan's great. I mean, I think he's a great back end pick, great value pick, because people just underestimate him, and he's got a skill set that can go up.
Yeah,
because he's going to get on base a ton. He's got a fantastic eye. He's in very hard out. And so if he's on a lot, it really depends on it. Does he start to run? I mean, I've heard that the bases now look like pizza boxes. So, Kwan, if he becomes a 30 steal guy and his batting average is going to be outstanding, and the Guardians are underrated, he's going to score a lot of runs. You could do a lot worse than Stephen Kwan. I like that pick.
I like him. He's a California kid too, so I like him a lot.
I'll also add Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton. I have him as a value pick. I mean, he's a monster.
He gets hurt every year, though. Every year
he does,
he's on the
but
DL.
he got hurt last year, and he still hit over 30 home runs in a
I know, but it's just
protracted amount of
frustrating as an
time.
owner. I get it.
And not only that, if people look at his batting average, which was terrible, just a little stat here. If you look at his BABIP, it was super low last year. He was so unlucky last year. He's going to rebound a lot this year. His health is really the main issue. And I think if you get 2/3 of a season out of Stanton, it's going to be better than most outfielders. I don't have him in my top 20, but I probably have him about 21.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about some other value picks. Then we'll get into sleepers.
Okay.
Other value picks you guys had. I had Stanton. I had Brian Reynolds. We talked about Kwan. Where do we rank Bryce Harper in all this?
Well, I have him as a value pick. He's my top
He's a value pick. Yeah.
Because you can probably get him pretty late in the draft because he's not coming back to the All-Star break. If you stash him in your IL spot, all of a sudden after the All-Star break, this is a guy who routinely in April, the beginning of the season, bats like 400 and hits 9 home runs in the first month of the season. If he's a notoriously fast starter and you can get that in July, like
not only that, but
crazy.
If you're in a head-to-head league, everyone in a head-to-head league should be taking Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
It's going to be a monster value later. And you can get through with whoever until then. Take Stephen Kwan and combine him with Bryce Harper, and in a head-to-head league, you're going to be happy.
Right. No, I have him as a value pick. Another guy I have is, and again, it's not somebody who has a track record yet, but Oscar Colas, the Cuban for the White Sox, they project him to be the right fielder, bat in the middle of the lineup. This is a guy who power, some speed. I mean, he's not a burner, but he's a power speed guy who he's not young. I think he's 27, 26. I'd have to look to be exact. Proven track record of being a ball masher. And I just think he's somebody who not a lot of people have heard of or not a lot of people are thinking of. You can get him late in the draft. And he's going to add value to your lineup. Like it's somebody who you can count on late in the draft to give you startable statistics.
Ross, give me one or two others.
I think in Cincinnati, it's a hitter's ballpark. Okay, guys, we know that. It's an easy place to hit home runs, easy place to score runs, easy place to do everything for the batters. Horrible place for pitchers. But I like Will Myers. He's coming. They signed him as a free agent. I think he'll have a pretty good season in Cincinnati, and he probably won't be drafted in a lot of leagues, but I feel somebody's going to have to hit the ball in Cincinnati. In Pittsburgh, it's Reynolds. In Cincinnati, I'm leaning towards Myers. I mean, again, I don't even know who the starters are for Cincinnati. I know Jonathan India is the only one I know that's for sure starting. And Tyler Stevenson.
Tyler Stevenson is great from the
and
catcher
he's either catcher or first base, but that's it.
All
so
right.
Will Myers, I like a lot. And another guy I like that had over 30 home runs last year that no one talks about. He's plays for Baltimore. I say he has 30 home runs again this year is Anthony Santander.
Yes.
Again, I can't even pronounce his name. That's how much I know the guy. But he plays every day. He hits for power. And this guy, again, is a value pick. I mean, you can draft him in the 13th, 14th round. He's going to have 30 home runs for you, maybe 90 RBIs. That's not bad for a value pick.
I'm going to add one more. Mitch Haniger, I think, is a great value pick. And by the way, I don't have Stephen Kwan as a value pick. I had him as a sleeper just because so few people talk about him. And that's what we're trying to hold ourselves with sleepers. Also, what do we do with Masataka Yoshida? What do we think?
Now, he's not a speed guy. I researched him. I looked at his stats. Boston. He's not a speed guy, but I feel that he's going to have a good year in Boston. He has power. He gets on base. I like the guy. I think it's worth a chance in the late rounds. What do you guys think?
I think it's a value pick. That's what I have him down for.
Yeah, I think it's worth a flyer. I don't have as much faith. I mean, other than Ichiro, there aren't a lot of position players who come over from Japan and immediately start hitting. I mean,
Hideki Matsui.
Yeah, but if you look at his first year stats, they were not good, and then he became kind of if you remember, he hit that one like grand slam in the rain to win the game in extra innings. And from there on, but that was in his second season, he kind of took off. But I do worry about the adjustment with him, but he's got a track record in professional baseball. I think if you can get him in one of the last several rounds of the draft, it's probably worth it.
I mean, he's ranked 191st in Yahoo. So you can get probably pretty good value on him. Let's move to sleepers.
Yes.
Remember, we're trying to talk about guys that nobody's really talking about for one reason or another. I'm going to name one. This could make you laugh, Kasey, as a Yankees fan, but Harrison Bader. After I watched him in the playoffs,
I freaking love that guy.
He's an unbelievable outfielder. I mean, he plays center field great.
He became a legend and one of the more beloved Yankees ever in a 4-game span, faster than anybody I've ever seen. Where it's just he plays like his hair's on fire. I don't think that power is gonna be present.
Except you got to remember, in that lineup, he's going to get a lot of great pitches to hit.
Yeah. It depends where he bats in the lineup. Obviously, I don't see him. I see him as a 7 or 8 hitter for them, which means you have Jose Trevino batting in front of you, which doesn't guarantee you a lot of good pitches. But I love the guy, and I certainly think in terms of where you can get him in the draft, he's worth taking.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want him as one of my top 3 outfielders.
No, but as a 5th or 6th outfielder,
even as a 4th, with the number. I mean, he had 17 stolen bases in under 300 at bats, and he steals all the time. Yep. He's just that kind of player, and he's scrappy. He annoys the crap out of me, but that's the kind of guy you want on your team.
I have a question for you. This guy was MVP of the National League a few years ago. Now he's playing in a new ballpark in Chicago.
Or Bellinger.
Is Cody Bellinger. And
I knew it was one of those two.
It's Cody Bellinger. I mean, he's going to be drafted late. I think a change of scenery is going to help this guy a lot. I think he had a lot of pressure playing in LA because he's an Arizona kid. He's close to home. His parents were at the games all the time. I feel getting away out of LA, playing in Chicago will help him a lot. That ballpark's going to help him too. What are your thoughts on Cody Bellinger? He'll play every day there. He didn't play every day in LA.
Yeah, he's going to play every day because, I mean, their lineup, frankly, kind of stinks. So
how dare you? But don't.
Well, like name 6 position players who are going to bat every day for the Chicago Cubs right now.
Dan, look it up real quick and tell him. But you're right. I'm just saying.
And so my fear isn't that my fear is, he's got that hitch in his swing that just makes strikeouts a thing.
I think he worked on his swing in the offseason, but
they all do.
The thing about him, yeah, sure, they all do. They're professional baseball players. But
wouldn't it be funny if they never worked on anything?
I went and laid on the beach and drank a beer.
I mean, here's what I think about Cody Bellinger. Anybody who drafts him is going to feel pretty good about it because they're going to get great value on it. But if he doesn't deliver, they're going to feel like, well, that was just wasted value. Like,
you can always wave him. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, he's either going to be like one of those picks that wins you the league because you got him so late and he delivered on performance, or he's going to be on your waiver wire.
Right, but I think
June
Ross is making a
1st.
key point. Go ahead and get him on the back end of your team and see, and you can always cut him.
And there's another guy I like a lot, and he showed a lot of promise at the end of the season, is Riley Green of Detroit. I know you're saying a Detroit Tiger. You really want to? Yeah, I'll take a Detroit Tiger. I like this guy. I mean, I watched him. I mean, he was piling up RBIs and hits at the end of the season. I think he's going to be great. He looked great. I mean, what do you think about him taking him late as a value pick, or is
I would take him late, yeah, because it's a power speed potential thing. Again, my theory is early in the draft, you want people who have a high floor, right? You want to play for the safe, predictable outcomes. When you get to those last 3 or 4 picks, the guys who you're going to interchange throughout the season if they're not performing anyway, look for lottery tickets, right? And Riley Green fits that mold of somebody who could very easily bat 211 with 7 home runs and 14 stolen bases, or he could bat 270 with 25 home runs and 35 stolen bases. Well, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point.
I get the point.
So yeah,
here's my number one sleeper pick of the year. I'll give it to you guys. I was going to hold it. I wasn't going to tell you, but let me just tell you who my number one sleeper pick.
Don't withhold from our audience.
I'm just being dramatic. Just please. Right. I love this guy. He had an unbelievable September when he figured out the pitching in the National League. Is De La Cruz of the Marlins. This guy is the real deal. This guy is a stud. And he's going to start in the outfield for the Marlins, and he's going to have a huge year. I love this guy. I'm going to draft this guy. I have him in leagues already, but I'm putting a lot of stock into De La Cruz. What do you guys think?
He certainly did prove in September that he can hit major league pitching. He kind of had almost a Randy Arozarena ascension there at the end of the season, like Arozarena did the year that the Rays went to the World Series. I worry about the swing and miss there. Obviously, the batting average is going to be questionable, but yeah, middle to late of the draft, he's certainly, I think, worth it.
Late in the draft. Kasey, who's your number one sleeper? Tell us who your number one guy you want to target late in the draft.
I have 2. One is a post-hype sleeper, and that's Jared Kelenic. Like, I still believe in the talent. I do. I know the first 2 years
his batting averages
have not been good. Yeah. But he is another guy who has...
He had 141.
I know. It's horrible. But, I know. But again, when I think of a sleeper, I think of somebody who you get very late in the draft who could, if the chips fall the right way, end up carrying you into contention for your league. So I have him up there. He's doing well this spring. You know, I think they rushed him up to the majors because he was part of that Edwin Diaz trade, and they felt like they had to prove they weren't getting the short end of that stick. So they put him up there. And the other guy I have in Ross, you know how much I love this guy. I talked about him all the end of last year on the waiver wire show, and already this year in a couple of our Tuesday shows. The Oakland Athletics have this young outfielder who they took from Milwaukee, who Milwaukee took it from San Diego, and that's Esteury Ruiz. Is the guy last year in the minor leagues had 84 stolen bases, like 84 stolen bases, and even power. I think there was like 20 to 30 home runs. I'd have to look to be certain, but he batted over 300. He's going to get to Oakland. We talked about naming starters in Chicago's offense. Try naming some in Oakland's offense. This kid is going to be able to play every day. They're not going to care if he runs. I could see this kid batting maybe not 320 or whatever he batted in the minor leagues, but even if he bats 280, I see him stealing 50 bags if he stays healthy and plays every day. And that alone is worth like 2
great
power
speed
value guys. Right.
I'm going to name 3 other guys.
Go.
Lots of people are talking about Zach Veen at this point, outfielder for the Colorado Rockies. So I don't even know if he qualifies as a sleeper, given that everybody's pretty hyped on him. But I think you want to get on him. He is a rookie, so Ross's lesson right there with you. You know, I'd rather have Riley Green in his second year than most rookies, because that second year is when they tend to take off. So, but the Colorado factor makes Zach Veen worth it if you can get him late enough. I don't think you're going to be able to, because he's going to skyrocket up drafts. But these are 2 guys I hear nobody talking about. Garrett Mitchell of the Brewers. He stole 8 bases in 60 at-bats, and it looks like he's going to have a lineup spot. So,
and he's playing well in the spring too.
He's playing
doing
well in the
great.
spring. He did just get pulled for a hamstring injury. Hopefully it isn't too much.
Great.
Another guy, Ross, you're going to love this. TJ Friedel. You know him?
Yeah, Cincinnati Red, sure. He played last year.
It's another power speed guy that I think you can get late. And these are the kinds of difference makers you can get. I'm not saying they are going to be difference makers, but they could be. And that's what you need. And not just dreaming, but there's reasons to suspect that that's going to happen. Anybody we haven't mentioned, guys, before we wrap up?
Somebody that steals bases. I mean, this guy will have 30 stolen bases this year. Not really a power guy, but he gets on base. Is Jake McCarthy of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I like this kid. I think he'll do well this year. If you need a guy that's going to get stolen bases in that category, it's not a bad pickup. Again, he's not a power guy, but he gets on base and he'll score runs in Arizona. Those are the two facts. But he loves to steal bases. And
Case, anyone to add on top of that?
I mean, I like Lourdes Gurriel Jr. as a bounce back candidate now that he's in Arizona. This is a guy who 2 years ago hit 21 home runs and drove in 84 runs, bats respectively in the 270s. He's going to get to play every day. It's a good lineup. I could see him providing some value. You can get him late. Nobody talks about him. And then I still haven't given up on Nick Castellanos to be a power hitter who you can get late in the draft. He's in that Philadelphia ballpark, which isn't much different than Cincinnati's in terms of being power friendly. It's going to be a deep lineup that only gets deeper in July when Bryce Harper comes back. So he could see a lot of good pitches to hit. And this is a guy who's not far removed. I mean, what was his last year like in Cincinnati? Ross, you were there. It was pretty incredible.
He had a great year, but then he was traded he was traded, and then didn't do that well in Philadelphia. He's kind of disappointing in Philadelphia. He can bounce back. That's a good name, Casey.
He could definitely bounce back.
He did well in Cincinnati because that ballpark is a joke, but I'm curious to see what happens in Philadelphia. And somebody has to pick the slack up for Harper, so you could be right.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, it's been great talking to you about outfielders. We're going to do starting pitchers on Tuesday. That's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. On Thursday, we've got our draft, and that's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tune in for both. We'd love to see you there. Thanks so much for watching. Casey and Ross, thank you for being here with me. It's been great. Looking forward to next week.